Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. One of the most challenging things that we all encounter when we're out there on the body of water, especially in the springtime, is fishing pressure. You get discouraged when you look up in front of you and going down the bank is another boat or two or three boats, or you're pulling into a pocket and a boat's pulling out. So I kind of want to just talk with you guys about what goes through my brain when I'm dealing with fishing pressure. What do I do to combat it? What do I do to up my confidence, to up my success rate when I'm dealing with fishing pressure? And for me, it's a combination of things. Let's take into account the obvious first. Noise, boat noise, human noise, everything that we produce as we're out there fishing, I try to keep that to a minimum. So if I'm fishing shallow down a bank, lay down stumps behind docks, I really don't need my depth finders on. I've went swimming before underneath my boat, just like all y'all have in the summertime, and you can hear that pinging from a pretty good distance out. And when you're fishing the bank and you're fishing shallow, you don't really need them on. So put those things in standby. Let's eliminate that factor of the sonars making extra noise. Let's keep that trolling motor down. Let's keep it on 2, 3, or 4. Keep it on a constant speed. Keep it don't on and off all the time. Let's keep it at a very constant speed. Keep your movement in the boat. Don't be slamming lids. I know these things are kind of given, but I just want to reiterate them because a lot of people overlook it. When I have somebody new in my boat, man, they'll be slamming that cooler lid every time they get something to drink out of there, and it's just like, oh man. And I magnify all this when it's calm. If I've got wind and I've got waves and, then I feel like I can get away with more. But if it's really dead still, not a lot of wind, then I feel like everything is magnified. So keep those obviouses to a minimum. If you're on a bank and you're fishing down a bank, walking it, stay back out off that bank. Use things to mask you and your presence, as you walk up to it, whether it be a tree or a shrub or something between you and the water. Keep something between you and the water, just like you're camouflaging yourself. So, those are the obviouses: your noise, your boat noise, your trolling motor noise. But then when we go to talk about baits, I think the number one thing is put something on that you have confidence in. If you're fishing heavily pressured deals and you're not going to get a lot of bites, number one thing, put something on that you have confidence. For me, my confidence bait would be that bait right there. It's just a finesse jig. It's a natural brown color. It's that old living rubber. That's an Andy's custom bass jig. I won the classic on that. I've got this thing tied on 12 months out of the year in my rod box. It's not very bright. It doesn't have a lot of sparkle or flake in it. Just a very, very natural color. I've got just a little green pumpkin power chunk on it. I have a lot of confidence in that bait. And I'm not gonna overpower it with heavy line. I'm gonna have 12, 14, 17 pound test, as light as I can get away with. I feel like those things give me that many more bites when I need to get another bite. So maybe your confidence bait's something else, but put a bait on that you have confidence in. That's one thing. Another thing that I do is downsize my baits. I've got 3 different baits right here. That's just a normal flipping bait. Everybody flips a 4-inch creature bait of some sort. This is a 4-inch pit boss. But when I'm in a pressured situation, I'm fishing behind other boats, I go with that 3-inch. I go with a smaller bait, just a smaller profile. I have a ton of confidence in that it's just a smaller presence. Anytime something's smaller, it's that much harder for a bass to realize to say, hey, that's not real. Anytime something's bigger, there's that many more opportunities for something not to look right, to be out of place, to not be natural to that fish. So just downsizing my bait, I can get a ton more bites, especially when it comes to crankbaits. You take a square bill crankbait, the most common size would be like a 1.5, or in the Berkeley version, it's a 5.5. It's that length. That is the most common size. I cannot tell you how many times in my career on a heavily pressured body of water, when I downsize to a little one, my bites go up tremendously. And it's not a big difference, but it's night and day. Like You can have somebody in your boat throwing that size right there and somebody throwing that bait right there, and you can get 10 bites and not get one on that. It's amazing to me how much a bass can key in to the size of a bait. So this one right here, that's a 3-5. It's just a lot smaller bait, smaller profile, smaller hook, smaller everything on it. I'm gonna throw it on a little bit lighter line. And then another thing that I will do is, if in heavily pressured situations, go with a transparent bait. Not only just in my crankbaits, but maybe it's your topwater, your spinner baits, your vibrating jigs. Go with something a little bit more transparent. You know, this would be a solid color. You know, bass can't see through it. When I go with a transparent one that you can see through when it's in the water, is again just one more element that a bass is going to have a hard time determining that that's a fake lure, that you know, I'm making it just a little bit harder on him when it's transparent. I'm making him rely on his vibration, you know, the vibrations in the water, his lateral line to feed instead of so much by sight. And you know, just going with a transparent bait can get you more bites in those situations when things are heavily pressured. You know, another thing that I'd be horrible if I didn't mention is, you know, bringing out that spinning rod, having a shaky head or a drop shot on it. You know, this bait right here has caught more bass in a heavily pressured situation than about anything, you know, and not only just a shaky head, but you know, a drop shot's another bait that you have to have in that category when you're fishing those heavily pressured situations. You know, don't put too big a line on these things. You know, that spinning rod with that drop shot or that shaky head, that has saved me so many times, again and again and again through my career, to catch some fish, to fill out that limit, to get a few more bites. This is a bait that you have to have in your arsenal when you're fishing those situations. One other thing that I want to just touch on, you know, think about where you're fishing to. You know, one thing that I always like to do is try to put my bait in a place that everybody else isn't putting their baits. You know, so many times fishing docks, fishing laydowns, you know, you can really see where an easy cast is behind that dock or an easy cast into that laydown. Make an extra cast that's a little tougher, you know, maybe up underneath that dock, maybe up underneath that laydown. The other thing that I will do is make multiple casts. You know, so many times I've caught bass and had caught really big bass when I make 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 10 casts exactly the same down the side of a dock or down a laydown. Just continue to make that cast over and over and over, and it's just like eventually that fish gets fed up with it and they will bite. Another thing that you can do is reel faster. When you think about it, you know, everybody going down the bank, they're all reeling the same speed. You know, it's just, if you'll go down the bank and speed reel that crankbait or speed reel that vibrating jig or that spinner bait, or maybe it's with your jig or your flipping bait, you know, put a lot heavier weight on this thing to where it falls faster than what you would normally do. That can get you more bites. That is something that is different. That triggers those fish to bite because I don't give them time to think about it. You know, if you think about, you know, this bait, you know, falling down in front of his head, and if it falls real slow, that fish has time to think about, I don't think I'm really hungry. That may be fake. I don't want to bite it today. But if this thing just goes, boom, just falls right by them really quick, they don't have time to think about it. Just out of reaction, they bite it. So another thing you can do is reel it really fast or add more weight to your bait to make it fall faster, will get more bites. So that combination of things, guys, putting a bait on you have a lot of confidence in, downsizing the size of your bait, whether it be a compact spinner bait or a compact crankbait or a compact flipping bait, or putting a shaky head on, or downsizing that line size to a drop shot, or putting a heavier weight on, you know, maybe putting a heavier spinner bait on or a heavier flipping bait on to make those fish react, or reeling a bait a lot faster. Those are the things that you got to think about. You got to think about something outside the box to get more bites when you're fishing in those heavily pressured, crowded situations. These are a few of the techniques that I've utilized through the years to get some more bites, to give me confidence, to get on the right track of getting some bass in the boat.